Hello, today we're going to do Word Chapter 1 Guided Project. As I explained in the Common Features project, I'm not going to go through the process of downloading the files and uploading them and all that type of good stuff. As you get more versed in the way my IT lab does, this will become second nature, but just so you know, I'm not going to continue to do that each guided project. So when you do download the files, you're going to get 3 files. You're going to get your starter file that has your last name in it. You're going to have your instructions file, and then you're going to have this fish document that we're going to actually import into your grader file. So these are the 3 files you need. Remember, if you download all your files together, it's going to come as a zip file. Make sure you decompress that zip file before you start modifying any of the files, because you're not going to be able to save anything to that zip file. It needs to be decompressed into a directory structure and then start modifying it. Okay, so open up your main document file that has your last name in it. And this should be what you see. And let's get started. Okay, so Word Chapter 1 is really just starting to introduce you to some of the concepts. We're going to import a document. We're going to do some formatting, some color changing, changing of fonts and styles, and you know, those basic concepts of Word. Now remember, with Word, and really with any of our projects, it is very important that you do everything specific to what the instructions say. If it tells you to put your cursor someplace, make sure you put it there, not close to it, not a space here or a space there. Make sure you do exactly what it says. And even then, when we get into some of the later Word chapters, the grader doesn't always grade it right, and I will have to make adjustments at that point. But you really need to focus on being very explicit in following those directions. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do it in all of your Word files, it wants you to display non-printing characters. So those are your paragraph markers, your space markers, your tab markers, things like that show you the formatting of a document. Because when you look at, say, this right here, okay, now these are numbering, but you don't know if those are spaces there or if those are tabs, because it's non-blank. I mean, it's blank, so you can't tell, did I do 5 spaces or did I do a tab? And depending on your printer configuration, 5 spaces may be completely different. They may look the same, but 5 spaces format's different than a tab marker. So it's very important that you do the right thing. In addition, here, is that a hard return or is that a soft return? You can't tell, right? From this, it's just, oh, okay, I went to a new line. But did I go to a new paragraph line, or did I do a soft return and as part of the same paragraph? So it's important to be able to see those things when you're doing these formats. So in order to do that, over here on your Home tab, so this is your ribbon. This is called your ribbon up here on the top. And these are your different tabs. And then inside of each tab, you have groups based on what they're doing. So you've got your font group, your paragraph group, your style group. And under each tab, you're going to have different groups. Now, some of y'all like to have, and I will have my ribbon displaying all the time. Some of y'all may not want to, or maybe yours isn't by default and you want it to. So the way you do that is this little arrow right here on the very far right hand side will collapse the ribbon so that you only see your tabs, and then when you hit a tab, click on it, your ribbon will show up. If you want your ribbon displaying all the time, click a tab and then hit this. Is going to be a pin. That means pin the ribbon down so that it displays all the time, and that's how I'm going to have mine, just because it's easier to be able to see everything. Okay, so to turn on your paragraph markers, or your non-printing characters, it's in this paragraph group on the Home tab, and it's this backwards look NP. And it says show and hide, show paragraph markers and other hidden formatting symbols. Okay, so you do that, and now you're going to see where all of these things show up. This is a hard return, so that's where you have hit enter. Okay, these dots here, that's a space when you hit the space bar. These arrows here, that's a tab where you've hit the tab instead of hitting spaces. There's more non-printing characters that we'll see as we go forward, but these are kind of your introductory ones where you're going to see these all the time, and so you need to be familiar with what those are. So the difference between a paragraph marker and a soft return, if I do shift and enter, that is a soft return right there. Okay. The difference between the two is when you do a soft return, it's considered the same paragraph. Whereas if you do a hard return, it's considered a new paragraph. So when it tells you to go to the third paragraph, you need to be looking at these paragraph markers to say, okay, there's one paragraph, there's two paragraphs, there's three paragraphs. If you have that soft return, that's not a paragraph. Okay. So step 2, it says we're going to change the orientation to portrait. So orientation has to do completely with layout. How does your page look? Your margins are part of the layout. So when you print it, how does it look? And so that's going to be under the layout tab. So we're going to go to orientation here, and we're going to say portrait. And now you'll see it's changed some of the formatting you know, the width of the page. Okay, we're going to add a page number footer. The page number should be placed at the bottom of the page with a plain number 2 section. And then we're going to close the footer. So this is going to be on the insert tab, okay, because we're inserting a footer. Right now, there's nothing in the header, so the header is this blank space up here, and the footer is this blank space down here, and it's going to show up the same on every page. So we want to add a footer. So here is your header and footer group. Now the thing is though we want to add a page number footer. So we could say footer, and you're going to see it like this. This is not what we want. We want page number. So we're going to say page number, and we're going to say bottom of the page, and there is your plain number 2. So you need to, it's going to be explicit in what you need or what it's asking for. So in this case, it's asking for plain number 2. If you go to the footer here, you're going to see there is no plain number 2. So that means that should be your first clue that you're in the wrong spot. So we're going to go to page number, bottom of page, plain number 2. And you'll see it puts it in the bottom of the page. And when we have a second page and a third page, you will see how that page number increments. So now that it says we're going to close the footer, so you can click this close header and footer button right here, or you can double click in the main document and it will go back into the main document and close the header and footer. And you'll notice I cannot now modify that footer until I go back to the header and footer by double clicking in there or by going in and modifying it through the menus. Now I can edit the footer or the header, but I can't modify the main document. Okay, step 3, it says place the insertion point at the end of the document. So that's going to be after this or right before this very, very last paragraph marking. Not here after the exclamation point, but here after the paragraph marking. That's why it's important to make sure that those non-printing characters are on, because if you were just looking at this page, you would think, oh, that's the end of the document, and it's not. This is the end of the document. Okay, we're going to insert the text from that fish document. Okay, so to insert text, we're going to go to insert, because that's what we're doing. We're inserting. So remember, these tabs, they're logical based on what you're trying to do. So they're trying to group things together so that you can more easily find things. And over here, here's text. So we're inserting text. You can see none of these is inserting text from a file. But if you click this down arrow on object, right there it says text from file. That's what we want. So we're going to click text from file, and I need to go and find my document. And here it is. Okay, so I want this fish document right here. Okay, and I'm going to say insert, and you'll see that it inserts all of that in starting at your insertion point where you had your cursor. It inserts everything that was in that document. So that makes it much easier than opening the document, copying everything, and then coming over here and pasting it. We just flat out insert it. Okay, then it says to scroll to the top of page 2. So here is page 2, and you can tell right down here where it says page 2 or 3, 2 of 3. Okay, go to the page 2 and change the word create. So right here, this first word create, you're going to change it to build. Just a very simple word change. Okay, next, step 4, we're going to check the document for spelling and grammatical errors. The word delight is not misspelled, as it is a brand name. And because there are no correct suggestions for the word layer, you will need to manually change it. Okay, so let's do our spell checker. Down here is, you're going to see this little book with this one happens to have an X. This is your proofreading. So this is your spell checker, your thesaurus, your synonyms, grammatical errors, things like that. I'm trying to remember where it is because I always use that button there. Whoops, review. There it is, under review. Here's your proofing right here. Spelling and grammar, thesaurus, and word count is your proofing stuff under review. So you can use these buttons as well. But like I said, is why it took me so long to find it is because I always click this button down here because it's easier. So I'm going to click that button, and you're going to get this window that pops over here on the right hand side. So it's going to start where your cursor is, and then later it's going to turn around and say, oh, we've gone to the end of the document. Do you want to start from the beginning? And then you say yes. So you can start the spell check anytime you want to. So here, this is obviously misspelled. They left out the D, so we want besides. We're going to say change. And then this one should be, you need to look at, don't always take the default or the first one. You need to actually read the sentence and see what makes sense. Obviously, youth does not make sense in this sentence, but your does. So I'm going to click on your and then say change. And then that one, they just left out a space, so we're going to change that. And that one should be conceal, not cancel, but conceal. So make sure you choose conceal and say change. And then this is where they were saying layer. They put a space between the L and the A, and this is where you're going to have to change it manually. When you do that, it's going to kind of come out of the spell checker. You need to click resume. Okay, so we went to the front, or to the top of the page. Here is check. They left out the E, so we're going to change that. This is where it said delight is not misspelled, so we don't want to change it. So we're going to say ignore, or you can say ignore all. Ignore all means that if it appears somewhere else in the document, then it'll ignore every one of those instances. In my case, I'm just going to go ahead and say ignore once, because I might have delight like this spelled somewhere in the document, and it may be misspelled, and I want to be able to change it. So I don't want to overlook all of them. So I'm going to say ignore. And then it says spelling and grammar check is complete. We're good to go, and say OK. Okay, step 5, change the margins to narrow. Okay, so we're going to go to layout. Again, this is how your page is laid out, and here are your margins. And you'll see you have options here. So in our case, we just want to choose narrow. Sometimes you're going to come down here to custom margins and only adjust the top or the bottom or the left and the right. So keep that in mind. But these are some of your default settings. So I'm going to choose narrow. And now you can see instead of having 3 pages, we only have 2 pages because you have more text in which to write. So your margin is this space between the end of your typing and the end of the page. Every printer needs margins, just with the way that things get printed. And then we're going to insert a page break so that build a backyard fish pond begins on a new page. So you can see here, because we changed the margins, it's no longer on the second page, it's on the first page. We want this to be on its own page. We want it to start on its own page. So build a backyard fish pond, we're going to put our cursor right before the B in build. And right here under page setup, you've got breaks. We're going to down click, we're going to click that arrow and say page break, because that's what we want to insert. And that's what you're going to see. It's going to see where this is, again, your non-printing characters that says page break. So you can see that this is a page break, not a section break or a column break. Depending on what type of break you did, is going to tell you what that is. And every break is a little bit different. Okay, step 6, click after the word noticed on page 2 and before the comma in the third sentence of the first body of the paragraph. Okay, first body paragraph. So in this first paragraph right here, first big paragraph, I know I said this is a paragraph, but obviously there's not 3 sentences in that paragraph. We want in the third sentence, so there's sentence 1, that period, there's sentence 2, that period, and then here is noticed. This is the word we're looking for, and that comma. Okay, so you want your cursor between the D and the comma. Remove the comma and the following space and insert an EM dash. Okay, so I'm going to delete the comma, delete the space, and then we're going to insert a special character. That EM dash is a special character. So we're going to go to insert, and we want to go here to symbols. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and click on more symbols because we want this to pop up. So you've got all these different symbols depending on, so that's a minus sign, you know, that's a pi symbol, there's a square root, so on and so forth. We want a special character, so I'm going to click to special characters, and here you can see it says EM dash. That is the special character that we want. So I'm going to say insert, and it puts that EM dash in there. Okay, then we're going to leave this open, this symbols window open, because we're going to use it again here in a minute. Click after the words Paving Delight. So over here, Paving Delight, so that's company name, but before the closing parentheses. So after the E, but before the parentheses. And we're going to insert a trademark symbol. So again, this is going to be under symbols now. And we want a trademark symbol. Here's your TM is trademark. Here you can see it says trademark sign. This R, that's a registered sign. That's not a trademark. So TM, I had used it previously, so that's why it's under my recently used symbols. If it's not under your recently used symbols, you can enter this character code 2122 and it will find it for you. But here it is also under normal text, is that trademark sign. And I'm going to say insert, and now we get that TM. Okay, then, okay, we're done with the symbols, so we're going to close that window. And then step 8, it says add a watermark with the text Backyard Bonanza showed in red. The watermark should be horizontal and semi-transparent. Okay, so again, we're going to, it's not under the Insert tab, it's under the Design tab, because we're now changing the design of the document. Not the layout of the document, but the design of the document. So the design has to deal with colors and styles, borders, themes, fonts, those types of things has to do with the design. The layout is how does it physically lay out on your piece of paper. So we want design, and here you've got watermark. Now you have some default watermarks, and in some of your, I know in a couple of your other assignments it tells you to put a draft watermark, and a lot of people will actually put this draft and change the color, and that's actually wrong, because draft should be uppercase D and lowercase RAFT, so you have to do a custom watermark there as well. So I'm going to do a custom watermark because we want to put in our own stuff. We want a text watermark. Our text is going to be Backyard Bonanza Okay, the font is fine, the size is fine, the color we want to be red. Now as you hover over a color, it's going to put that key code up there to tell you what color it is. So I'm going to click red, and then we want it horizontal, not diagonal, and say apply. And now you can see it puts that watermark there on your page, and it will do that for every page. And say close. There it is there. Okay, the next thing we're going to do on step 9 is we're going to list Backyard Bonanza as the author in the document project properties, and the subject is Backyard Projects. So the document properties are going to be under the File tab, and you've got properties over here. So here you can do all sorts of different things, inspect your document, check for issues, things like that. But then here's your properties. So I'm going to go to Properties and say Advanced Properties, and it said the author needs to be Backyard Bonanza. And the subject needs to be Backyard Projects. Again, make sure that your caps, if you have capital letters, that they're capital letters and not lowercase like what I had done. And we're going to say OK. We're done with that. We're going to go ahead and click Save so that it saves our document. Now I know the very first step on all of your projects, it tells you to rename the file with your last name at the end of the file. It is not necessary to do that. Those instructions are made for people that are not using the online grader like we are, and they're wanting you to change it. Because the online grader is already giving you the file with your last name in it, you don't need to change it. Now if you do change it, it's okay. It's not going to count it wrong. But it's just a step that you don't have to go through if you don't want to. Okay, so we're done with this file. Save it, close it, and submit it, and you're all done. Have a great day, and I will see you on the next guided project.